is, let's see, is Douglas here? Douglas, if you come up, request for approval to ratify a local transportation funding agreement by and between Weber County and Pleasant View City to establish funding terms related to Skyline Drive.
Commissioners, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here. In the interest of your agenda today, all of these transportation projects have been, at least in my opinion, fairly thoroughly vetted at the COG level and to some degree already by the Commission. So if it's okay with you, I'll just identify the project boundaries and the dollar amounts that we're committing from local funds, and of course happy to answer any other questions that you have. And again, thank you for allowing us to take item number 19 off the agenda. So this first one between Weber County and Pleasant View City for a short phase of Skyline Drive, again located out in Pleasant View City. This is from 500 West to 350 West in Pleasant View City. This again is part of a much larger Skyline Drive project, facility project out in the area. The issue that's driving this segment right now is the fire district intends to put a new station in, and we're going to take advantage of that and construct a road that's missing. Weber County has committed to assist with construction related costs from our third quarter sales tax transportation fund up to $228,903. So with that, Commissioners, again, I request your approval for this local funding agreement between Weber County and Pleasant View City.
So I'll make a motion, but I'll just make a note of it that there are two Skyline Drives in Weber County. There's one in Pleasant View and there's one in Uinta Highlands, and these get mixed up. My phone starts ringing like crazy because I think we're doing something, but one's in Pleasant View and one's in unincorporated Uinta Highlands, just for a little education on that.
And we're talking about the Uinta Highlands one.
No, we're not. We're talking about the Pleasant View one.
Okay.
And that's why they get confused.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm paying attention.
Good. All right,
Okay.
Douglas. Thank you. All right. Commissioner, any other comments or a motion?
I made a motion already.
Okay.
So
Did I
who's
second
paying
that?
attention?
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank
Any
you.
opposed? It passes. Thank you, Douglas. And 20, item number 20, we're going to hold 19, right?
Yes, thank you.
So this is the second amendment to the transportation funding agreement between Weber County and Riverdale City on
Yep.
4400 South.
We need to go to 18. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So we did
excuse me,
17.
yes.
We need 18.
So this is Pleasant View City on Skyline Drive.
Another phase of Skyline Drive, again in Pleasant View City. The project boundaries for this agreement again run from 500 West to Highway 89. There are other significant funds that have been pledged to this project to Pleasant View City, $2.8 million from Wasatch Front, which is important to help with construction once the right-of-way phase has been completed. This agreement funds $2,446,000 in right-of-way dollars to this project from our local corridor transportation fund. With that, we'd certainly appreciate your approval.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agreement with Weber County and Pleasant View City for Skyline Drive that is in Pleasant View in 89.
Okay, and I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes. So now we're at item number 20, which is again the 4400 South in Riverdale.
Yes, thanks again, Commissioners. This has been a kind of a tough project for Riverdale City. This is primarily a safety issue where we're developing pedestrian walkways under I-84 and over I-15, again on 4400 South, primarily within the boundaries of Riverdale City. This project has positive impacts to Roy City and Ogden City as well. When we originally approved the project a couple of years ago, the request came in at $1.2 million. Effectively, almost right out of the chute, design and engineering costs were kind of under anticipated, which drove the first amendment, which we approved last year, requesting an additional $388,000 at that time. And now with the second amendment, due to requirements that UDOT has put upon the project that weren't in place when the project was originally designed, that's forced Riverdale City to come back and ask for an additional $665,000. So we've increased project costs on this nearly $1 million from its original inception. Again, the COGS Transportation Subcommittee has, vetted this project, and we believe it's a good one, and we would request that you approve what is now a total of $2,264,000 for this project from our local transportation funds, our third quarter cent sales tax.
So I sit on that subcommittee, and we've been going through these, so as we move through them, this one here is a project we really need to do, and what has happened is the rules changed by when you're going across the freeway and some things, and this what's really costing us a lot of money. There's all kind of little changes, little here, little there, and it really's added up to a lot, but they've been working hard on it. We've talked to the mayors in all 3 cities that are affected. This is a big deal for Weber County to connect us across that freeway there, so it's an important project. So I'll make a motion, we accept the second amendment to the local transportation funding with Riverdale City and 4400 South.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And to 2550 South between Weber County and West Haven City. Is this our last one on these, Douglas?
It is. Thanks again, Commissioners. This is a two-phase project. The funding agreement, the amended funding agreement in front of you is requesting that Phase 1 and Phase 2 be combined into one agreement. From a project efficiency perspective, that certainly makes sense to us. That's why it's here in front of you. We originally approved Phase 1 back in 2013, and as we were developing the agreement for Phase 2, West Haven approached the county and asked us to combine them into one amended or one local transportation funding agreement. The project boundaries are essentially, again, 2550 South in West Haven from 1900 West to roughly 2700 West. Commissioner Ebert? The total cost of $2.647 million with city funds matching just over $500,000. So we're asking your approval for this combined project, Phase 1 and Phase 2. Wherein the county will contribute $115,000 in right-of-way funds and up to $1,985,000 for construction and construction-related costs out of our third quarter sales tax for transportation fund.
I'll make a motion, we accept the amendment to local transportation funding for the 2550 South with West Haven City.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. For our next item, I think it's appropriate to note for those who are listening online that Commissioner Ebert has joined us. We welcome you back.
Happy to be here.
You okay?
Yep, I'm good.
Good. You're better than I was then
I don't
a
think we're
couple weeks
online,
ago.
but anyway, we're trying.
We're trying. Is that where we still struggling with that?
I think we are a little bit.
We're recording, but not. Okay, sounds good. All right. So we, since we have Mrs. Ebert that's joined us as well, if you'll come up, I know I just saw her. There she is. If you'll come up and we'll handle these two items,
14 and
item number
15.
14 and 15. Item number 14 is request for approval of contract by and between Weber County and Ogden City for the purpose of distributing JAG funds. Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Uh-oh. How you doing?
I'm okay.
Good.
Thank you.
It's hard to say goodbye, isn't it?
Well, let's not bring it up. I mean, come on.
Okay, so the first contract I have is an agreement with between Weber County and Ogden City. Ogden City has applied for the 2016 JAG grant. They have, this is calculated by using a number of a certain type of crime, and they qualify for this grant based on the number of crimes that Ogden City has. Weber County in itself does not qualify for the grant, but because Ogden City is within Weber County, we do get a portion of that grant. So we get about 10%, which equates to $6,200 this year that we'll be using for equipment and some technology improvements.
I'll make a motion, we accept a contract by and between Weber County and Ogden City for the distribution of the JAG grant that we get our cut.
Second.
Okay, motion and second then to approve this item, number 14 on our agenda. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Thank you. So to our item number 15 is the request for approval of contract by and between Weber County and the State of Utah Department of Corrections to provide incarceration of offenders under the jurisdiction of the Department of Corrections at the Weber County Jail.
This contract, for a number of years, we've housed state inmates at our jail in Weber County, and this is just a renewal of that grant, or I mean that contract, excuse me, to house these state inmates at the Weber County Jail. And it is a 3-year contract.
Okay,
Awesome. It's a great contract.
recurring.
Yes.
Pay some of it. It's always good to get partial paid, or will they pay all of this one?
The state rate this year has gone up. I believe as of July 1st, it went up to $52 a day. We also house some inmates over at our Kiesel facility, some female inmates that are involved in a substance abuse program that they also give us an additional amount per day for those inmates as well. So that's a good thing.
I'll make a motion, we accept a contract between Weber County and Utah State Prison for taken inmates.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second then to approve this item, which is listed as item number 15 on our agenda. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. We promised these folks that are here, I think, for this one particular item. Holland, are you aware of any others that we're waiting for on voting? Okay. So we told them we'd try and get this on as quick as we could. We just about got through our agenda, but we wanted to wait for Commissioner Ebert, so we're appreciative that you're here. So we'll do this one. This is item number 22. Request for approval of an ordinance by and between, amending the overnight watercraft use ordinance for Pineview Reservoir. And Commissioner Ebert, you're listed as the presenter here. You want to do that?
Love to. I believe we have any resources here to answer questions that we need. We've spent a tremendous amount of time talking about the need for some type of law enforcement opportunity to enforce, and we've heard the specific concerns we've had with the enforcement in the past with the ability to enforce it. So this is our second reading, I believe, and we have had a very rigorous, I believe, discussion. For those who have not had an opportunity to hear the history of it, I'll briefly describe it. The Sheriff's Office had been contacted specific to ongoing issues at the reservoir, specific to overnight stay or anchoring. Had come up with what they felt was a very good solution to that, and it was initially brought forward as an ordinance to close all night usage from 10 to 6. There was a tremendous amount of concern with that from the boating community, and so we kind of stayed that ordinance to do some further discussion. We were contacted by Mayor Truitt of Huntsville, who was concerned for the citizens of his city. He requested for us to attend a meeting that he was putting together where they were going to discuss that. So we did spend some time with that group. We did ask Mayor Truitt for fairness to reach out to some members of the boating community in that meeting, and so Mayor Truitt contacted several individuals, one of which was the Commodore of the Yacht Club. So we attended their meeting, had very good discussion, and were invited to take a tour of the lake of the reservoir, which we did with the sheriff's office. Then the Commodore of the Yacht Club wanted us to also go out from a more of a boater's perspective, so he invited us to go out with him, which we did. So we've had a tremendous amount of community input from Huntsville. We were then contacted by another member of the community that does not live in Huntsville, who said he was putting on a public meeting and invited us and asked us to attend that. So we attended the meeting up at the Huntsville Library for other members of the community. I believe there was some members of the boating community there also. One of the things that we found out fairly quickly is that usage of the reservoir falls under the Forest Service. It is not something that the county can regulate. So we contacted the Forest Service. Our Forest Service contact was Mr. Robert Sanchez, who was very amenable to talk with and to work with. He made it clear that the Forest Service has to do a study to change any type of usage of the reservoir. We requested him to try to expedite as quickly as he could. He told us they could do a temporary usage review, which would take 60 days, and then they were working on a management plan for the reservoir, which would take over a year. So the process was started in an attempt to address the problems as quickly as we can. Specific to what the county can do, it would have to do with enforcement of existing laws. And that's where we talked to Lieutenant Toll and found out what we could and what we couldn't do, what would work and what wouldn't. So the resolution at this point was an anchoring ordinance and anchoring fees. And the reason we needed that is if you've attended many of these meetings, a common thread throughout these meetings has been enforcement. And enforcement isn't as easy as just going out there and writing citations. And so the compromise, I believe, that we came up with was an anchoring permit that was more easily enforced, but also provided the revenues to provide that enforcement. So there's been a lot of consternation about county overreach by certain members. There's been some concerns with the county having secret meetings, which we never had a secret meeting. I just want you to know that. We attended meetings we were invited to. But we have had a tremendous amount of dialogue.
Commissioner, let me just add to that. When you say we, I think it needs to be pointed out that we have been very careful to follow not only the letter but the spirit of the law with the Utah Open Meetings Act, which basically means that the commissioners didn't attend a meeting together. So for instance, I think that there was a few people from Huntsville that were a little upset that I wasn't at that meeting at the library. And I just want to make sure that they understand that that's because we shouldn't be at a meeting together, because that would constitute a quorum of this body. And this is where we do our business as a quorum of this body. And so we try to, we have to do our research independently to a large extent in this particular case. And we've all tried to do that in our own ways. But as far as 2 or 3 commissioners getting together and attending a meeting like that with an item that is before us as an agenda item, we are very, very careful to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. Thank you.
Follow up to that.
Yeah, I use we as a collective, as the county, not collective as a commission. So that's where that's how we've arrived here today. There will be, from the Forest Service perspective, a review of the usage on the reservoir for many different aspects, so we can provide a better service up there. And moving forward, I believe that the anchoring permit, the fee, is based upon an estimate of the amount of boats that will be on the reservoir at night over a 3 or 4 day period. I believe that the anchoring fee permit, which is used primarily, I'm hoping wholly, for the enforcement component, will be adjusted as we get a better idea of how many boats are actually out on the reservoir at night, so we can pay for those enforcement services. So at this point, that's a history of it. I could go into a little more detail about the permitting process, but it's it's fairly, self-explanatory. It will be permitted through the contractor, which right now is American Land and Leisure. And at this point, we're working on some of the other dynamics of a daily fee, or can we do a yearly fee and those type of things. So we're working through that. So that's pretty much all I have.
So what are the fees? So I don't see anything in the ordinance for costs. How are they charging fees without the cost being in the ordinance?
That would
What is
be
the
up to
fee?
Mr. Wilson. So the fee right now is based upon a matrix that was created from the sheriff's office. We need 3 officers to do the enforcement.
Okay.
And so we had a fixed cost for enforcement that was divided over 3 days and over a specific time frame. So I believe it was from 10 to 2, 10 to 3, which then gave us a specific amount of money that we needed.
So Dave, do we need a cost in the ordinance or not? We can just use
Our fee schedule.
a
We need a
fee
fee
schedule,
schedule.
we don't need any of that?
You're gonna need to adopt the fee schedule as part of the ordinance.
So today, I see no fee schedule. So if we pass the ordinance without a fee schedule,
Well, you can pass the ordinance without the fee schedule. We usually put the fees in our fee ordinance, and we could adopt that at a later time.
okay, so back to this, my question is so do we don't have, so we're not passing today how much that pass is gonna cost them?
Well, I could add it in there
Okay.
if you would like me to, or
Well,
we
I'm
could
not-
do a fee schedule at a later date.
Okay, well, but if they start charging tomorrow, how much are they gonna charge them?
Well, this is going to be a process that's
So
going to
this might
take
be a
more
little
than,
while down the line.
yeah, it's going to take more than a day.
So if they hook their boats together and they have some jet skis, they hook on their boats, do they have to pay a separate permit for those jet skis? Like when they go out in the water? Brandon, maybe you can answer that. I don't know what it means by boat. And does that include it, like if they have jet skis and when they tether all together?
Well, the jet skis aren't allowed to be on the water at night
Okay.
with the current line.
Okay, so they can't be out there anyway at night. So my next question is gonna is toward Anderson Cove. So Anderson Cove, when you buy your permit to stay in there, you can put your boat there too, right? In Anderson Cove, or you better come up here and talk to the microphone, state who you are and what sheriff's office you work for and.
So Brandon Toll, Lieutenant with Weber County Sheriff's Office. For that question for Anderson Cove specific, again, we do have separate county ordinances that pertain to Anderson Cove. But when an individual pays to launch the boat at Anderson Cove, there's a separate fee, and then they do charge for camping, overnight camping. So really, the people who pay at Anderson Cove, they get their pass to stay there the night, and then they pay an additional cost for their boat.
Okay, so when they pay the additional cost for their boat and they put it in, if I was up there and I didn't launch my boat at Anderson Cove and launched it somewhere else, could I drive over to Anderson Cove and dock my boat there or tie it off there by Anderson Cove? Or do they get a separate pass in their boat saying, hey, I'm an Anderson Cove launchee?
I'm not sure about the pass for the boat, but basically it is for the folks that have just purchased the pass at Anderson Cove. That boating
Right.
area is for
but
those
I'm-
folks only.
But I'm still, the question is so if I go up there and I want to stay the night and I don't buy a pass and I go over by Anderson Cove and anchor and you guys come up and say, hey, where's your pass? I don't need a pass. I'm with Anderson Cove.
So I can answer that.
You would have to have a pass from Anderson Cove.
So Anderson Cove allows you to beach at Anderson Cove if you have paid the money. If you're at Anderson Cove and you want to anchor, let's say at Spring Cove, you have to pay an overnight anchoring fee to help pay for the enforcement of.
So there's no anchoring going on at Anderson Cove.
From
No,
what
there
I,
is.
From what I understand, you have to be anchored right off the beach, right there, and you can't sleep in your boat.
Okay, so is that,
No. Currently, Anderson Cove specific, you
Yes.
can beach your boat only at the Anderson Cove area.
but can you anchor at Anderson Cove?
Yes,
But you can't sleep in your boat.
yes, you can.
Oh, I
If
thought-
you
I thought you
have the
couldn't sleep in your
pass
boat.
from Anderson Cove specific.
Okay.
That's why we have a separate ordinance specifically for that facility, because they do provide the overnight camping. So you
Right.
purchase that pass through them, and in turn, you're able to overnight camp on the beach at that specific area.
I got that. Okay, so my next question is how much are we planning on charging for a permit? And then I want to know what the enforcement will be and how that enforcement's gonna go, because as I look through the ordinance or what we're gonna pass today, I don't see where the teeth come in there, because what I understand is that if someone violates that, we just don't let them back on the water. Is that correct? Or what are we doing? How's the enforcement mechanism in that working?
Okay, so what we're asking is the discussion, do we want to discuss the fees as far as what would be? Okay, so we feel that it would be feasible for $15 for the overnight anchoring.
Okay,
This cost would have a percentage go to AL&L to manage that, the money.
Okay.
And also, there was a percentage to the county. So with the difference, that really would be, from the sheriff's office standpoint, the bottom line fee that we would be able to actually provide the necessary enforcement for what would need to happen out there. We're looking at 3 deputies for the weekends from 10P to 3A. And with the 3 deputies, we'd have 1 on land, 2 on the water. And the cost was about $1,000 a night to be able to provide that enforcement.
okay.
I think that was for an estimated 300 to 350 boats over that 3-day span.
It ranged from, I believe, 100 to 250. Because we just, the typical is about 100 boats.
A
So-
night?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
in
that's-
Spring Cove alone, we have about
so that
55.
was, that 3 to 350 was over that 3-day span. So we were looking at about,
Yes.
that's how they did the matrix. The matrix was over the 3-day span.
Right.
So it's $15 to buy an overnight permit, and if, when you go out and you check the boats at night, and you find one without a $15 permit, what is a citation gonna cost, and what kind of citation is it?
So it would be a regular state law citation that would either be basically theft of services for not purchasing a pass, or it could fall under trespass.
So,
And that would revert back to the person who signed for the pass in the first place.
Well, if it's
so we're
just somebody
talking-
that
so we're
doesn't
talking-
have a pass, period,
so we're
if they're
talking
out there
criminal,
without it.
so you're talking criminal and not civil here.
Correct.
So tell me, they're probably Class B misdemeanor, so tell me what the cost is when somebody puts their boat on and doesn't pay their $15. Do we know what we're gonna charge them with, theft of services or trespassing?
Well, it's basically just the regular state law, and I think it's around $82.
About $82, okay. And can you revoke them from coming on the lake? Will you have them get off the lake? What's your plans to
Yeah,
do
we
when you
will.
find somebody without a tag?
We would trespass them. We would let them know that they would have to vacate the premises.
And if they don't have anybody to drive the boat and they've been drinking, then what do we do?
We're not going to physically remove
Okay.
them. They would just receive the citation.
Okay. So it's $82 if they don't get a ticket. If they do get their pass, the $15 pass, and you're out patrolling and they're allowed noise or the noise ordinance, we'll just go back to state law, whatever the loud noise ordinance is, and write them with whatever citations you have under that.
Well, so we're back to the kind of the issue that we had to begin with identifying the problem.
Okay?
So therefore, if we get a complaint of a boat or several boats, we would then, the first starting point would be basically revoking their pass and vacating them off of the water.
Revoking their, okay, gotcha.
So at that point, then if they were not allowed to purchase another permit because they were creating the problems, and they chose to stay out there without purchasing a permit, because really at this point they wouldn't be able to,
Okay.
because again, they're the problem, then it would revert to the citation for state law. And then if in fact they wanted to try to get a permit at a later point, we would have a due process in order to discuss that, whether or not they would be allowed to purchase another permit.
Okay, so is the permit gonna be a permit for the person, or is the permit for the actual boat?
Both.
You're gonna do both there, so.
Correct.
Okay.
So if the person,
If
so
the
on the
person's a
permit, we would have,
problem- If the person's a problem and he gets a different boat, his person, we're still gonna know who that is.
Correct.
If the boat's a problem, gets a new person,
that's
Okay.
correct.
okay. Let's see here, jet skis, we covered the permit, the violations, about $82 if they didn't get a permit. We don't know yet, we haven't passed any ordinance on the $15 fee yet. We're gonna pass an ordinance today that we're gonna lock it down at night, and then our next step's gonna be what we're gonna charge for it, correct? Am I correct there,
I
Dave?
think we could put the number in today if we can
Yeah.
agree on it.
We can easily, and I can send you the matrix if you want to look at it, or I can explain it to you better if you'd like.
Can we do something that if somebody gets a citation and their first citation that their fee for their this docking fee, can we raise that considerably the first time after their first citation they get, instead of banning them off the lake, just make it expensive for them to come on? Is that even a possibility, Dave, to do that?
You're saying, I graduated.
Yeah, because I'm saying people that are gonna keep the law and obey the law, it's always frustrating to me, is when you do what's right, then all of a sudden you're gonna get fined. And I agree, $15 isn't the whole world here. I get that, and we need to do that at night, what we do up there. I mean, I was up there yesterday, and it was downright busy, I have a feeling, from what I saw. And so the money is an important thing. Obviously, since this hammer's been held over the head, from what I understand, what I was told yesterday from some of your folks, is that it's got kind of quiet up there at night. Probably not continually, but last night was probably, I don't know how last night ended. But so that's my concern on it. I hope the enforcement, we can do the enforcement portion of it. I'm okay with $15. I've heard $35, $25. So if $15 is where we're at on this anchor fee, I do want us to look in to be able to have a weekend pass and some different things like that, and a yearly pass, people to be able to go up there all the time. So that's my thought.
Can I just go back,
Sure.
I think, Lieutenant, to a little more of a philosophical discussion here? I appreciate what you brought to us and the concerns that you brought. And we have tried really hard as individuals on the commission, I think, to understand this issue and try and figure out what the best thing would be. I will admit I was a little hesitant about the full closure, and especially after hearing from some of the boat owners. I think that there's ways around that. I think if they're willing to participate in a positive way, and I will compliment the recreation owners. I think they've done a much better job this year of being respectful and of the law. And unfortunately, as we've found in a lot of cases, there are some who are and some who aren't, and those who aren't respectful tend to make things really hard for those who are. And so we have to be really careful, I think, as a commission. We don't want to take these opportunities away from everyone just because someone chooses to be a numbskull. And unfortunately, there are some numbskulls. I spent most of the day, most of the afternoon around and on the reservoir yesterday with sheriff's deputies. And I was impressed. Even though I've been out there before since we started the discussion, I wanted to experience the holiday effect and the evening effect. And first of all, Lieutenant, I got to compliment your guys. I mean, it's amazing to see the work that they do. And I will admit, I was nervous out there a couple times as we pulled around 50 boats tethered together, and as you get just just close enough, you could tell that they really weren't too happy to see you. And we're sitting there with one deputy and a fat commissioner, you know, on this boat, and wondering what
It was him.
happens. Wondering what happens if things don't go real well. And yet that was one of the better evenings, from what I'm told, over the weekend, because of the fact that we all had to come to work this morning, and I think the fact that a lot of these folks have done a really good job of talking to the problems out there and saying, hey, this is not a good thing. Let's improve ourselves. And so, you know, we were coming off the lake just at the time that the fireworks were ending, and AL&L was closed, and so the deputy that I was with put us in our vehicle and went to open the gate for us to let us out. Between the time that we went around the corner and then stopped at the gate, they received a call of a boat that had capsized. I think in this particular case, it was a sailboat, and all units, everybody went flying back in there onto one boat, you know, or two at the very, very most, and put on the full-fledged rescue effort on, you know, out there on the lake. And I'm proud of them. I think they do a tremendous job. But I think this fee is critical towards putting resources where they need to be to make it so that they can do their job. I do not think it's fair, it's not right to send out one deputy on a boat like that into a volatile situation where there's oftentimes alcohol involved and people that are not too happy to see him. So frankly, I would like to see the fee be a little higher. I would like to give our law enforcement the opportunity to really be able to, I mean, if we're going to have responsibility for it, we're not going to throw it back in the Forest Service lap or whoever, state parks or whoever. It seems to me like we need to do it right. And I'm telling you, we have a difficult situation up there the way that it is right now. This is not an indictment on everybody that gets on that lake, so I don't take it personally, any of you, but I'm telling you, there are some, well, don't, because there are some problems up there, and if you're not willing to admit that there's problems up there, then you're not seeing what I saw last night. And you're not seeing the 50 and 60 boats that was described to me in Party Cove that will walk out onto the back of those boats as the deputy comes around and just fold their arms and say, what are you going to do? I mean, because that is a reality. It is a reality. It may not be for you, but it is a reality. And we have got to put the resources behind these law enforcement officers, or we are going to, I mean, when I grew up, you know, when I was a kid, I'm sorry, but I would have never made overtures towards a sheriff's deputy that bring it on. You know, show me what you're going to do. And this is said all the time in some of these volatile situations. And you know what? It's not going to happen in this county. We're going to put the resources towards making sure that our officers can defend themselves and enforce the law and protect the public. So we can talk about the number, but we have a problem here, folks. We've got to solve the problem, and I think we've come a long ways. We went out there on a limb and said, hey, we're going to shut this whole thing down. We heard intense feedback. We're not going to do that right now. But I'll tell you what, we need to solve this problem, and it's going to be a moving target. We're going to have to adjust as we go along, and frankly, if it gets worse again, I'm okay with coming back and saying we'll take on whatever we need to take on to solve this problem and protect the public and the peace of the community and our taxpayers. And so I think it's all about finding a balance. I was copied on an email chain after our meeting 3 weeks ago, where several people up in the community said the taxpayers have lost because the commissioners didn't go with the all-night closure. I don't think we've lost. I think we're trying to find an appropriate balance here that makes sense, that works, where people understand their individual roles in this process, and where we treat each other with respect, and we maintain a proper infrastructure and a proper environment up there in this reservoir. So I like where we're at for today. I don't think it's the final. I don't think it is ever final. I think we're going to have to watch this thing as we go. But I like where we're at. I like the fact that now we're going to have a civil ordinance on the books that when someone checks in and asks for permission and pays an overnight camping permit, just like you do if you went to a Forest Service campground, you're going to pay every single night a little bit for the maintenance and upkeep and law enforcement on that Forest Service campground. That's all we're asking in this particular case. They sign their name, they put their boat number or registration on the form, and if that boat becomes a problem, when that boat goes off the water, they're going to be cited. And I think it's a great motivator because again, what we're trying to do is target the problems. We're not trying to do a cast a net that hurts fishermen at 4 o'clock in the morning the next morning. We're trying to solve the specific problems that we have. And maybe a deputy has a little less of a confrontation if he can park his boat a little ways away, identify the problem, and mark a hole number. That's a lot different story than engaging 1 or 2 deputies on a tied up group of boats with 40 or 50 or 60 boats together and 150 people. I mean, that's a totally different dynamic. And then we can address those things in a much more appropriate manner. So, Lieutenant, I'm going on this one. I'm for this one. I guess I can debate the price. I want to see the price high enough that they recognize it for what it is, a privilege to be on that, and they don't want to lose that. But I also want to keep it low enough that they actually pay the fee and don't take the risk of not getting caught and pay the 80 or whatever it is. So I think there's a balance there, and I'll kind of.
So I got a question. So you're not going to write citations to them at night? You're going to write down whole numbers and then write them when they get off the lake? You're not going to make contact with people if they're making noise?
No, we will be making contact with people. The initial will be.
I just heard that you weren't.
Well,
I didn't say what they were going to do. I just said that the dynamic.
Can you do that?
different if
Can you do that? Just jot down a bunch of whole numbers, and then when they start pulling their boats off, start handing them tickets? Can you legally do that?
Well, so that process would be really is writing the whole numbers down, is receiving the complaint, identifying the again, boat or many boats that are the problem, and basically writing down the whole numbers, checking to see if they have the permits, and therefore, if they're the problem, really it'll just be recorded, not so much citations, it will be
You'll
revoking
revoke them.
those permits.
Will they be able to put their boats on during the day, just not leave them at night? Or will
Correct.
they be off the dam
No,
total?
they will
Okay,
be able to go on
so
the
if I
day.
assume that a citation
Gotcha.
would be written, that would be wrong. It would be that a
whole
permit could be
number.
revoked.
Correct.
Because the permit's
Correct.
civil.
The
And that might
citation
be-
would be if they didn't have the permit when they were out there between the hours of 10 p and 6 a.
And if the
And
problem.
you'd have to do that during the night. Write
Yes,
those
we
citations.
would be making rounds, absolutely doing the enforcement out there between
And I
10
got
to
it.
3 like we
And if
discussed.
the problems didn't come back, we'd be okay with that?
And
That's
I
what we
agree.
want.
I agree with Commissioner Gibson that we need to do what we need to do for our law enforcement, and which is fine. This is a small little Band-Aid, but when you get 60 or 80 boats put together out there, you're still with 2 of you. It's a little different situation. I think it's a
challenge.
little challenge, a little scary. I hope that just the idea of a permit, because I would be happy with $5, charge them $5 overnight fee. But I understand we want to try to generate some revenue here to put some more officers on the lake. But one of the ways you can always do it is you just you sit down and look at your tax rate and raise your tax rate and be able to hire more deputies to do it. So there's other ways besides just this fee, and I really have a hard time that we're going to hurt people that are all the good people, which is most of what we deal with. I was in your shoes at one time. 99% of what we deal with are wonderful people. That 1% is where we spend all our time and all our money.
So if I could just add real quick.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
If we raise the tax rate though, Commissioner, wouldn't that put that pain and hurt on everyone who, voter or non-voter?
I'm just saying that's another option. I'm just saying that's another option. That this fee is an option, but there's lots of different options as we're figuring through.
And I would just add that I'm generally in favor of user fees rather than general taxes most of the time, especially on recreation items. I think a user fee makes more sense than spreading tax burden across the entire population for those who don't have
This
time
is
to
proof that as a commission, we haven't been in any legal meetings because we've had these discussions, right? Me and you have had every one of these discussions, and I've had these discussions with Mayor Truitt in some of the meetings we've had, and we've spent a tremendous amount of time going over all of these specific points. I think one of the things that we want to do is give the sheriff's office the tools to go out and make the reservoir a better place for everyone to either recreate at or live around. And I think this is the first step to accomplish that. And we'll work our way through the specific enforcement because we're going to let the professionals do that. We're going to give you the tools to do that. And what I want to see and what I think will happen is with more enforcement becomes more contact. And with more contact with the boating community, better relations are built. And when the deputies show up, they're going to know the deputies. They're going to call them by name, right? Because you've been there helping them before, because you're actually out on the reservoir, and you're seeing them every day. I think we're going to build a better relationship between the boating community and between the sheriff's office that will lead to just an overall better environment. And that's what I personally think will happen. The one story I want to share quickly, and then I'll be done, is in our last meeting, we had one of the boating communities say, "You're not representing the Pineview boating community." We have 600 and something members on our Facebook page, and so bada bing, bada boom. Before the meeting was over, I was a member of that Facebook page, and I watched a story unfold from last week where a gentleman was on the reservoir making a little too much noise, a gentleman we know because he'd come to the meetings, and a member of that community called him out. And then about 30 members of that community called him out. So I know that the community is aware of the issues and are working within that community to resolve them. And even when a member of that community, who's a well-known member, makes a mistake, they are working to resolve that issue in-house. And so between that and between having deputies on the reservoir that are making contact, building relationships, I think it's just going to be a much better situation all around. And specific to Commissioner Bell's concern about the $15, whether it should be higher or lower, and Commissioner Gibson's, this is going to be based upon the need. And maybe we only need the deputies out for 3 days instead of 4, or maybe we have less boats or more boats. The fee is associated with the fixed cost of providing deputies. So if we never have any problems, those will probably start to go down. So it's incentive for the community to really police itself.
So if we get out and we pass this and we pass the fee, and then there's $82 citations, but obviously those will go through the courts and the courts are going to take their part. So we're going to come back here if the boating community takes care of themselves, does what they want, we're going to reduce this fee?
In my opinion, and the purpose of the fee is to provide the law enforcement service. And so I think it's a sliding scale that can move around, that we can forecast every year what we think we'll need. If there comes a point where it needs to be 25, it'll be 25. If there comes a point where we only need $5, it will be $5.
So over the years, the Forest Service that we do, they're our partner up
We're
there.
not the Forest Service.
I know,
number
they
one.
used to pay 60, 70,000 a year, now they pay 40,000 a year, and we got double the stuff we do. I'm just curious about the reducing part.
Well, I think it's even a bigger issue than that. It's not just the fee that should be adjusted from time to time. We need to keep an eye on this for the long term.
I agree.
We need to watch that. We knew there was a problem last year, didn't know how to deal with it. Took us a while to do it. We made adjustments. We've had 2 or 3 proposals today. My guess is that this will continue to evolve, and we'll have to figure out best practices, best ideas. We'll have to figure out how to deal with the challenges that face us, and there will be changes, maybe even this year. I hope that we have the courage to go up if we need to go up, and down if we need to go down, and sideways or wherever we need to move to make things work.
If I could make a comment also just real quick about fees. Initially, we proposed $24. And the reason we did that is because overnight stay in campgrounds is $24. So just an example, if you are not staying at Anderson Cove, for instance, you're staying at one of the other campgrounds, to come down and launch your boat, it's $13. Going back to the campground to stay overnight is $24.
Good point. So I got you. So you'll pay the 13, and if you're going to stay overnight, you'll pay the 15. So you'll pay $28 to camp on the lake versus 24 in a campground.
That's just being in a campground.
Yeah, gotcha.
Correct.
Gotcha.
I'll go with the $15 if that's where you want to be. I just think we need to be aware of. I think the needs are greater out there with law enforcement than we recognize. But
Well, what I look at is Commissioner
agree.
Bell wants $5 and Commissioner Gibson wants 25, so I think 15 is a good compromise. Plus, it fits within the matrix. It's data
I
driven.
want $14.99.
okay. All right. We beat you up enough, Lieutenant. We appreciate you.
Brandon, I appreciate you coming out each time, and I know you and I've had offline discussions many times on this, nothing new. We appreciate what you do with Sheriff's Office. We appreciate you guys are doing a great job up there yesterday. I saw quite a few of your folks up there, and it's a busy time up there. Everybody kind of heads up there on the 4th of July.
They do.
I'm looking
Our
forward
deputies
to.
do great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm looking forward to seeing the response from the Forest Service, the study, the 2-month study or whatever, and see what they can come up with as well. I think this will be a positive exercise for us.
So I want to say that the little parking thing we did over there at Middle Inlet, I was up there Sunday and I noticed there was quite a few citations written, so that is good. And I was up there again yesterday, and the traffic was reasonable. I had 2 neighbors write me that live up in the area, and they used the word "so" with lots of O's, much better, safe. It was great, and I appreciate what the folks were doing up there, and I know it's busy. It changes overnight. 4th of July is probably the busiest weekend of the year. I know I saw the mayor yesterday up there and talked to him. I mean, their little town and the little community up there just gets a lot of folks come up there. So I appreciate what you do, and we need to make sure you have the resources to do what we need to do.
Can I express my appreciation to Mayor Truitt for him working with us, providing information, setting up meetings and inviting us to them, and then also the Commodore. Is it Moore? Is it Rob Moore? I can't remember his last name.
Thomas.
Thomas.
Rob Thomas.
Rob Thomas. Taking the time out of his schedule to take us around, show us why areas are used for anchoring, where areas will lose beach space as the water goes down, expressing a lot of knowledge to us about that community, both day and night use. And so I appreciate the community being very involved in this and reaching out to us. So it's been a great process, I think.
Would you like to take action then, Commissioners?
I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the overnight watercraft for the Pine View Reservoir, including a $15 overnight anchoring fee.
Is ordinance 6?
Number 6, ordinance 6.
Fitting and kicking and fighting on the fee. I don't like that, but we'll go with it. I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second then to approve this overnight watercraft use ordinance with the $15 nightly camping fee. Discussion to that motion. Okay, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Evert?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Sergeant, thank you also.
Most new sergeant. I mean, you can't quite call him sergeant yet. He's barely got him.
Hey, you get them, you get them.
Sergeant's a sergeant.
Practicing. No, they're
Okay.
good. Thanks, guys.
We have the item of the Weber County and North Ogden City North Branch Library. we'll go to that, Mr. Barron, and we also have our library director, Ms. Wingsgard. If you're, you probably ought to stay close just in case to answer any questions, all right? Thank you.
Just a little bit of background on this. This is one of the library's capital improvement projects, and the North Branch project has been held up the last few months because of parking issues. So this agreement resolves those parking issues. It's between Weber County and North Ogden.
So we don't just have a parking problem in the valley, we have them in North Ogden too.
We do, and the problem is caused by a lack of property owned by Weber County in the area. So we couldn't build a parking lot even if we wanted to. So in this agreement, North Ogden is going to give us some property directly to the south of the North Branch Library, where they have a skateboard park right now. And the county is going to help with the cost of relocating that skate park to another area in exchange for that property. On that property, we'll be able to build about 30 stalls, which will satisfy the city ordinances and allow us to move forward with the renovation and expansion of that North Branch. The agreement also includes some provisions for some future parking down by the senior center. North Ogden is going to expand their parking lot and grant the county an easement that will allow us to use that. And then the county at some point in the future will also build angled parking along that road immediately to the west of the North Branch Library. That's essentially what the agreement is. Any questions for me?
I think it's good, and it's where, the sad part is we're back where we started a year ago. We've gone full circle. I want to commend Commissioner Ebert, when he finally got his blinders off here in the commission, and he got his water wings to go, and he has been working very diligently on this. He's been working very hard. It's been a frustrating process for us. It's been frustrating for the library, I know for a fact. And they've done good, and I think Mayor Taylor, Mayor Molesky, that we have put something together that is going to work. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but I appreciate what you guys have done on that. I appreciate what Commissioner Ebert's done on that. The mayors out in North Ogden and Pleasant View have really been looking out for their citizens, in my opinion, and that's what they're supposed to do. And so we finally come up with an agreement, we put it together, and I'm ready to move forward on it. I'd make a motion right now, but I have a feeling someone down there may want to say something before I do.
Make a motion, I can talk anytime, but I'm going to strenuously disagree with the assertion that some of the assertions that you just made.
Okay?
One, I apologize, but this has got to be said. This has not just been a year of ridiculousness. It's been self-inflicted on the part of some of the folks in North Ogden, and frankly, I'm going to lay the blame, frankly, on the square of the mayor. I think that this has been extremely unfortunate, and I think that the public needs to understand why we're where we are, and that is that Mayor Taylor wanted the library building for another purpose and set upon a course that was designed all the way through the last year to manipulate this commission into his will and desire, which I don't believe was necessarily in the best interest of his constituents. I think maybe of his city, but not his constituents. And that's the problem that we have here. They orchestrated a whole bunch of, I think, disingenuous opportunities throughout this year. And now we find ourselves only back where we started because of one reason, and that is because someone came forward with a different proposal that frankly made more sense, and then this particular mayor said, wait. This is my library. This is meant for my city. It doesn't matter if the other opportunity came just a little ways down the road, because he was, again, focused on his city and his individual needs. And only when they thought that they were going to lose those did they come back to the table and then stick us with a whole bunch more demands that are in this contract that are very, very hard for this library board and this commission to meet. I was made aware again today that we're not talking about $214,000 here. We're talking about nearly $500,000 of items that are specified in this contract that we will have to pay for in order to make this agreement go forward. And it is frustrating to me and ridiculous that we're back in this point now of all of the taxpayers of Weber County, the library board who has bent over backwards to negotiate in good faith with this city who has not negotiated in good faith from my perspective, and a commission who has been held hostage through this process by a mayor who just simply wanted to fight. And I don't call out mayors very often in this body because we work with them every day. But I'm telling you, this is the biggest frustration of my time on the commission, is a mayor that wants to fight and wants to argue and wants to manipulate instead of come to the table with good faith negotiations and make this thing work. There's a reason why I held this item on the agenda until now, and that's probably because it probably wouldn't have passed before Commissioner Ebert. I am frustrated at the least if you cannot understand or tell that from what I'm saying here. But I will tell you this, the taxpayers of Weber County have not been served well by this process. Maybe some from individual areas, but Weber County taxpayers have lost value throughout this process, and it is frustrating to me. The only saving grace is that we have a library board and a library director who have minimized that damage to a large extent here, and I want to thank them and those savings that have been made. Now we come back to the individuals of this contract, the individual issues of this contract, and that's why I wanted Linda to make sure she was here, because I think that it's important to recognize for this commission that this is not a $200,000 commitment. This is a $500,000 commitment on a guesstimate, I'm guessing, as to what we're going to have to do to make this thing work. And we do not have the money today under the bond until next week, hopefully, when the bond package is put together to make that happen. So I'm assuming that bond package will pass next week. I'll be voting for it because I want to move forward with this, with the other projects and this particular project. But I think we just need to be. We pass this today, that it also depends upon that bond package passing next week. Most of the stuff in here I can agree with, but it's this extra cost that continues to be thrown on us, and most of the time at the last minute we get to a point in the negotiation, we're there, everybody's agreed to it, wait a minute, we get a copy back and it's different, it's changed, you're going to pay for this as well, and pretty soon it's a lot of money for the taxpayers of Weber County, and every one of you are paying it, no matter where you live. And I've said this before, we're not building a library system for a city or for a community. We're building a Weber County library system, which means that all of our constituents, all of our residents have to be able to feel some input and some buy-in, and it's a county-wide system. To me, that says that it doesn't matter to me if the library is is on one side of a city boundary or on another side of a city boundary. It's about building a system that makes sense. And that's what we've got to keep our eye on the ball here. So in the end, I think it's better that it's where it's at, but we just have to be aware that this is costing us more than we expected. You're good with that, commissioners? I may actually vote for it now.
Wow.
So I'm not sure exactly where you're coming up with the extra $380,000. There's not a $380,000 stipulation in here.
So in conversation with our comptroller, he told me that and I'm going to let Linda maybe come up, or ask Linda to come up, because She's the expert, okay? But in a conversation with him, he said, just be aware, there's a specific number in the contract that we will pay, but there are other items in the contract that require us to do certain things that are going to cost us more money.
And do you know what they are?
Talk to what those are?
Hello, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Sorry to
I
put
wish
you on
I
the
had
spot.
Nope.
silk
on the
hat,
spot. You're
because
not
it
on the
would be
spot.
nice to pull a rabbit or maybe some numbers out of that hat right now. Let me, before I answer your question, thank commissioners, especially Commissioner Ebert, for the inordinate amount of time and energy that's gone in to try to resolve the parking issue at North Branch. And it has been a moving target. I've said before, this is a lot like what the philosophers have said. You never step into the same river twice, because as soon as step out and step back in, the current had changed, the waters had muddied, something was different. And I think the agreement that's before you is outstanding in relation to the variables that we're dealing with. You've asked about the costs, and because we have canceled or had canceled our association with the architect and then got them back on board, it's been a challenge to get the architect, or for the architect to be able to keep dynamics in the negotiations. We'd have a proposal from the city and we'd look at what the costs would be, and then we'd have another proposal from the city and try to evaluate those costs. In fairness to the architect, they've had very little time to look at what this would cost. Maybe not necessarily over the next year if we're able to proceed with the North Branch, but over time there would be some additional cost for parking that would be on the west side of the library. Where the architect is hesitant is that the civil engineers have not had time to weigh in on what that parking would mean relative to the renovation of the library because of the slope around the facility. If you remember North Branch, the slope of the land drops off very steeply on the west side. And so what we would want to do as we do the initial renovation of what I consider to be phase one would be to make sure that whatever we do out front accommodates the future parking that we're obligated for and want to have on the west. In addition, the widening of 2600 North, some reworking of the entry to the parking lot, again to accommodate parking on the west side. We don't know what kinds of utilities are under the right-of-way there and what it would cost to move or relocate those. His best estimate on a napkin for those additional services probably is not a good number to present publicly. I don't know that it's fair to the architect, but I think it's fair to note that there would be some additional costs there. But again, this is a great agreement, and a lot of those costs would likely be in the future, except for the work on the north side of the facility to accommodate the widening of 2600 and the expansion to the west.
All parking related.
It's all parking, it's all parking lot, it's all easements, and it's all potentially underground utility relocation. I don't have a number for you, won't have a number until we can actually get the professionals on board to do the specifications.
Well, and I think that we have thrown out a number of 150 to 175,000 when we were initially negotiating with North Ogden. But it clearly, under 2.9, it clearly says included in a second capital improvement project, not in this initial phase. And conceptually, through negotiation, we included that in the same modeling that we used at the Huntsville Library, that we have a need for parking, that we do not have funding at this time, but we believe it is necessary for the functionality of that library branch in Huntsville. And so, as it is probably in this library, it is an area and an issue we want to be concerned with, we want to be aware of because we are concerned with it. And as 2600 North is expanded, we will lose 12 to 15 stalls, and at that point, there may be a necessity to look at that parking just adjacent on the west side. But again, it clearly says in the second capital improvement project, which would mean we would be in a capital fundraising mode for possibly a northwest branch. And just as we did in the Huntsville, we would include this phase of parking addition in that second capital improvement project. So it doesn't, and under this contract, bind us to put the angle parking in today or tomorrow when we have the funds and when we start our second capital improvement project. So that's why that's in there. So
It still commits us to do it, doesn't it?
So here's
it
my.
does, but there's going to be a need for it.
But there's two
No,
things,
sure, yeah.
three things. First of all, Commissioner Gibson, I appreciate what you said there, and I'm going to disagree with what you said there to some degree. In the fact that we are the ones who stopped this project. Nobody out there told us what to do. The Mariner at North Ogden didn't tell us to stop it. Nobody told us to. We take full responsibility for it, three commissioners. We make the decisions on what are moving forward on that library. Now, we took some public input, which I think was a good thing. We spent some time with them, went over some things. I understand.
That's not true, Commissioner, because the reality is we can't go forward with a project that we don't have an agreement on or a contract on. And we did not have an
Then we
agreement.
could have moved it somewhere else. We could have moved ahead on a library and not done something there, but we chose to go through this process, which I thought was a pretty good process. It did cost us money in the end. Projects around here all the time in Weber County, and the cities and the state do. We just passed one today that doubled in price, a bridge we're putting over the freeway.
But what you
These things
said
happen.
were two different things. It's different to say that we stopped a project than to say we could have done something else. And yes, we could have done something else. We did not stop this project. The county, the library board, I think, has always wanted this project to go forward since the beginning, since the opening, since the bond election. And we're there only today because of what I described. It wasn't us that stopped it, that made it difficult.
Okay.
Well, again, I just want to say from being in the middle of it, the project was put on a hold as we evaluated our options, and with input from both the library board and from our library director and our architect, that funding for that possible new location was going to be a stumbling block at this period and this juncture. And so even though it would have been an amazing opportunity, the funding source wasn't there for it to be moved forward. And so we went back to our original option. And so there's been a tremendous amount of work, and I completely understand Commissioner Gibson's frustration. I've shared it at times, but one of the deciding factors is we've lost money by holding this project up for a year in construction cost increases, and if we continue to do that, the amount of money we have available, these present dollars, are being fast, and so we had to move forward.
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Sherry, are you ready?
Ready.
I'll make a motion that we approve a contract by and between Weber County and North Ogden City regarding the North Branch Library.
Mr. Chair, may I interject here? I apologize, but consistent with Mr. Park's request, if you will make that motion subject to the bond approval next week, so we're not spending money we haven't authorized.
And I'll make that motion pending that the bond approval is passed next week. Okay?
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. We'll get to
Thank
work
you.
on this.
Linda, thank you. We do need to vote. I just want to, in discussion, I want to tell you thank you because I think the library board and the library director, my vote on this particular issue. As frustrated as I am, you're getting my vote today because of that. So thank you for your efforts. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Okay, thank you. We had two. Let's see, we had
And 7.
items number 6 and 7. Let's. I'd like to request that we hold item 6 till next week, but item 7 needs to be acted on today probably. So Rick, if you'll come up, this is a request for approval of a resolution of County Commissioners of Weber County appointing members to the Western Weber.
Commissioners, good morning. We have 5 individuals who have submitted applications of interest for these positions. 2 are existing members, Jeanette Borkland and John Park. The other 3 individuals, Bryn Edwards, Todd Taylor, and Jared Warren. They are new individuals who have submitted information. Would like to be on there. Bryn Edwards is Plain City Public Works Director. Todd Taylor is a contractor for interstate barriers, and Jared Warner is a software systems employee.
Okay, I looked at these applications. I know most of the I think all of them that have applied. This is my perception on the issue. We have the 2 have been serving for a little while, not necessarily a long time.
Right.
One of them, and they both reapplied, Mrs. Borkland, I think is important that we maintain her from a geographic perspective. She's the only representative from the Uinta Highlands, and she's the only from the Uinta Highlands, and that's an area of the unincorporated county that I think needs to have some representation, so I would suggest we do that. I also know Mr. Park, who is the other incumbent that's been serving now for a little while, and I think he's doing a fine job representing the community there in West Weber. I would recommend that we reappoint those 2, Commissioner Borkland and Commissioner Park, to those 2 positions.
So my link isn't working correctly. This is their 2nd term,
Yes.
and how many terms can they run for?
Typically, we do a 4-term, is what we've typically done in the past, but you could do,
I mean, like, can they run for 25 years, or is there term limitations on, or do you know?
that I don't know.
There's no, from my understanding, there's no term limitations. They can serve as long as they want, as long as they can continue to be reappointed, which I think that becomes our responsibility to determine whether or not they're being, sometimes people get tired and sometimes they become unproductive and value to people who have been around a long time. So I don't think, I like to take these on a very individual basis and say, hey, this person seems to be really understanding what's going on and is engaged and works well with the other members of the team. And sometimes you get someone, frankly, that's been there a year or 2 years or 5 years that has that problem. And sometimes they need to be, we need to make adjustments. So in my particular perception, I think these 2 are doing a good job. And so we probably ought to hold on to them a little bit and not train somebody new right now.
I'll make a motion for the Weber appointment of the Western Weber County Planning Commission that we do Jeanette Borkland and John Park.
2nd.
That's, Resolution 18.
Resolution 18, it is.
Still 2nd.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Ebert? Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Okay. It passes unanimously. Did I miss any items except for the ones that we talked about holding?
Well, we can, item number 6, we could move with that one. Or do you want to hold it? We can hold it. Okay.
Okay. Any other items on the agenda? Because we did have to dance a little bit on our agenda items today. Would you like to say something in public comment? Because I think you might have just witnessed some sausage being made here. It's kind of an ugly process, you know what I mean?
Come on up. Come right up to that. State your name and where you're from. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawson Wangsgard. I'm from Pleasant View. I'm an Eagle Scout candidate, and I am here to ask approval for a trailhead sign on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail near North Ogden. And there are 3 reasons I think you should deem this a project. Reason number 1, this project is guaranteed. I helped my brother, who is an Eagle Scout, build an identical sign in Pleasant View on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. And number 2, it promotes the mission of Weber Pathways in Weber County. And number 3, it gives me a leadership opportunity to one day become a contributing member of society. I have contacted Rod Kramer from Pathways, and he is eager to get started on this project. What questions do you have?
What was your last name? Dawson Wangsgard.
Well, my only question, which we really can't talk about a lot of these things in this portion, but yeah, our person that helps us is sitting behind you, and if we have the money and we can program it to do it, that's the biggest thing. Have you seen this, Colin?
We'll get you a copy.
It's so that's what we've got to do. We did ramp here like a couple of weeks ago. We just passed all the ramp stuff, but there may possibly be a few dollars in there. This year asking for $1,000, and we can give that to Holland and have her look into that. Looks like a great project, by the way. So
I'd be in favor of this if you'll do 1 a month for a year. No, this looks like an amazing project. Great project.
I hate to put you off on it, but that's what we'll do. I'll get a copy to her, and you've got your numbers on here, and she'll get a hold of you and talk to you about it, and we'll see if we have some money for this year or if we need to get it on our programming for next year. So, but you need to do the Eagle project now is the problem.
I did speak with Rod this morning, and he said we could do an easy grant application this week.
But they've already come and gone is my problem.
Okay.
So, but we still have some options and some things out there that I think we can.
Fundraise to pay for it.
Yeah, and we still will get with Holland and so, but yes.
Well, so you're looking for approval to do this on county property. And so I'd make a motion that we approve this.
Well, we can't make a motion.
Oh, yeah. Not on the agenda.
Comment, yeah, sorry.
That's something that we can take care of without probably a motion.
So, Dawson, I just want to tell you from a personal perspective how valuable my time in scouting was to me and how grateful I am that I took the time to achieve the rank of Eagle. And that's one of the things that I really look back on. And I can tell that you're way further ahead than I was at that age.
Me too.
And you're pretty impressive. And I think your one comment that you made about someday becoming a productive member of society, I'd say you're already there. You're doing a great job. And I appreciate your ability to identify a problem that's out there in our community, figure out how you might be able to tackle it, and then go after it and do that. And you deserve special kudos for sitting through a 2-hour meeting of the Weber County Commission just to be able to come up and talk to us. So,
the hamburger or something from Dad.
No, we'll get with Holland back there and have a little chat with her, see what we can do.
so thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, any other public comment? Sylvia, come on up.
Sylvia Salisbury in Ogden. What a meeting.
It's a doozy, huh?
I debated whether or not to do this, but I waited 3 weeks to be able to tell you about this. I first started coming to the when I became aware of some things that the UN is doing through Agenda 21. I brought a little article to the commissioners at that time, and I received something that I think we all need to be aware of. I don't know how much the county government has to do with HUD. Do you have any?
Mostly through our housing authority. We have a housing authority that have contacts.
Okay.
And I think HUD administers the community development block grants, is that correct?
ABC, yep.
Grants.
Well, this
Those
may
are usually
That's probably what she's talking about.
be something you need to hear then, if you haven't already. And I think everybody in the community needs to know so that we can contact those who are trying to do something about it. This is an article written by Tom DeWeese, and I'm just going to read some excerpts. He said, "The new twist in the enforcement of Agenda 21 policy is the new Housing and Urban Development ruling called Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing, AFFH. Have you heard of it?
Not so far.
AFFH requires communities that apply for HUD grants to strip search every neighborhood, detailing income level, religion, race, and national origin of every single person living there. HUD has created specific guidelines dictating specific numbers of each for a proper, quote, balance. If there are any shortages in any of these categories, then the neighborhood is deemed to be out of balance. HUD then requires that the community correct the situation. That correction requires communities to unnecessarily spend millions of tax dollars. To impose AFFH, HUD has changed tactics that are catching unawares local officials by surprise. In spite of our warnings that HUD grants come with severe strings attached, local officials have routinely sought and accepted HUD grants, declaring them as free money for local development. There was at least a pretense of local control, no more. HUD is now employing a stronger legal enforcement mechanism seldom used before to strictly enforce those attached and hidden strings. The result is social engineering that is leading to the destruction of property values and property rights of neighborhoods. In addition, any local governing body that takes a HUD grant now finds that their ability to govern the community as they were elected to do is basically gone, as HUD bureaucrats dictate policy. HUD has already filed legal actions against communities such as Westchester County, New York, and Marin County, California, for attempting to stand up to the HUD rules. Meanwhile, Baltimore, Maryland has been forced to spend $30 over the next 10 years to build 1,000 low-income homes in affluent neighborhoods. Such threats are growing across the nation. Now, in Congress, Senator Mike Lee and Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona have been trying to add amendments to legislation to defund AFFH. Twice they have resented such amendments, and twice they have been betrayed by Republican leadership. In one case, such an amendment by Lee was tabled after it was basically sabotaged by a senator from Maine. However, in 2015, Representative Gosar, I hope that's how you say his name, had already introduced H.R. 1995, a bill to prohibit HUD from implementing the AFFH rule. This bill has 25 co-sponsors and is in a pending status, but needs a lot more support in order to be passed. So in the meantime, these legislators are trying to get amendments to the various bills. So our local officials need to understand the danger. I'm going to present this at the City Council too, because I'm sure it applies to them. So we need to pressure our local officials to not take HUD grants because of these changed rules. And also another thing that we need to do is call our other congressmen from here Senator Hatch and Senator Bishop, and urge them to support this. So I'm going to give you each a copy of this, so just have your
Thank you, Sylvia. Appreciate that. I think it's important to remember that there is no free money out there, even from the federal government. And that's one of the challenges we have to be careful of. I remember, if any of you were ever in Bert Smith's office, I know some of you know Bert, knew Bert, but if any of you were ever in his office, he had a sticker or a poster on his wall that he made me a copy of the first time I went in there to see him. And it was about a paragraph blown up big so you could see it, but it reminded us basically of what, or me basically, of what you have talked about today, Sylvia, and basically said that in order for us to really have proper representation, we have to resist the urge from this large central government a long ways away and do more as local communities. And unfortunately, sometimes that's hard because we don't always have the resources we want, and so we have to figure out how to come up with those resources sometimes, and to be able to turn to the feds and say we aren't going to take your strings that come attached to every dime that you take from us and then send a little bit back to us. And so that's a challenge. Sometimes it means that we have to come up with resources on our own, which is taxes, and that's hard for a lot of us. So anyway, appreciate that reminder, and we'll definitely take a look and see if we can be prepared for some of these things coming down the road.
Thank you.
Any other comment today? Make a motion. Oh, we got one. Come on up, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. James Scribb from Riverdale. I'm wondering if I can make a couple comments on the anchoring ordinance.
Of course.
I know it's passed today.
Of course.
Just wanted to
I think that issue is going to continue to be a topic of discussion, and I think having your input will be helpful.
Yeah, and I actually was very encouraged by some of the statements about it being reviewed as time goes on, and that's kind of what I wanted to present today. I also was on the lake for 5 days and witnessed much of what took place on the beaches and in the coves. A family of 4, and since the threat of this ordinance has come out, I have seen a drastic difference. You've already noted that, and I appreciate that for the safety and sound quality for my family in the cove. So it's a really great change that's already taken place, and I appreciate that. A couple of the concerns I wanted to share with you guys was when we talk of managing and having the sheriffs out there. I really appreciate the work that they do, and I want them out there. It makes me feel safer, makes my family feel safer. To me, it seems like it's unduly burdening one user group of the lake, the boaters that stay the night. There are free beaches that are all over that, and this weekend it was,
beaches, yeah.
It was completely filled, and those beaches are just dirty. We do our best as boaters to clean them up. We take big 55-gallon trash bags, and we do. But our individual work as one person cleaning these beaches just isn't going to cut it. The bathrooms are in disarray, and frankly, I've seen a lot of fights from the elements that are down there that aren't safe, and I don't really hang out. I go find a beach that literally, as the Commodore I showed you guys, it is away from where people can walk to, so that I don't have to deal with that element. And these are this user group that's on the lake, causing things to the lake, issues to the lake, and it'd be interesting to me to hear the transparency of what are the sheriffs having to deal with on the lake concerning the free users of the beach, because it's an overall management, and I like that you guys have said you're concerned about the overall management of the lake. Well, to me, that is a large issue. The bathrooms are always a mess on busy weekends. The trash busting over. The parking is, as you already know, on the roads is dangerous. People didn't even care. They got cited. They didn't care. There was nowhere to park. They're just, people are going to come to the lake. The fireworks were amazing. We had a great time. And so to me, that's a major cost. I really appreciated Commissioner Bell finding ways to balance the fee for us users. And, that's one. Another one is an annual pass for us. I would have already spent $400 extra this year on top of the $1,400 we pay just to get in, to be out there with our annual passes and our slips and all that stuff. So now I'm close to $2,000. So it's a pretty heavy burden. And if I go out the rest of the year, I'm probably going to be at $800 in calculating. And that means next year I probably won't camp as much with my family. They won't see the pelicans flying in the morning and the sandhill cranes eating fish out of the water. I mean, these are amazing things, and I'll probably just not camp as much because that cost is pretty burdensome. So I'm fine with it now as is. I appreciate that you guys came to common ground and hit $15, and I really appreciate Commissioner Ebert's statement on let's review the data. Can you make the data transparent to us in a year's time to see how many nights did the cops actually have to go out from 10 to 3? How many incidents occurred from the boaters and sound? And I appreciate their statement of having to go, and you even said having to go up to a tie-up of 40. I, too, will drive in there with my kids, and they have to see some of what's going on, so I try to avoid that a little bit. And so that can be a tenuous situation. And it's always boggled my mind that we don't have vessel ID on the stern of our boats. I mean, if they don't want to engage and escalate, you can't get the vessel ID because they're on the sides and they're in a 40-person tie-up, as you've already noted. So you can jot down, well, it looks like this kind of boat or whatever, but vessel ID is really the only way to police and get that information without the engagement. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but yeah. So transparency of data is, I think, big for as a citizen. We want to know what's really going on. Is this for time and eternity we're going to be paying $15 or increase to 20, or can we get it to 5 if they notice that they're not having to go out to 3 a.m. all the time?
Right.
So,
good point.
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Appreciate
for coming
your comments. All right, any other comment? Come on up, sir. I saw you had a powwow out there with Ms. Wilbanks. I'm hoping
Making sure we figure out who signs off on his approval to proceed forward. Good. Todd Waingsgard of Pleasant View City, husband of Jana Taylor. She says hi.
Oh, hi. Now I know why he's such a cute kid.
Not my fault. This is a serendipitous moment talking about Pineview. He and I, Dawson, just got off the boat this morning because we stayed over last night on anchor at Anderson Cove. And we'll be staying again tonight, so I guess I can leave my $15 on the desk.
Yeah, I don't know how
they're eagerly awaiting our return because they can't go tubing until the captain's back. But there were 3 points. I won't take much of your time. There were 3 points I just wanted to share that came to mind as this was being discussed. Banter that happened before the motion and all of the questions that are still unanswered, it seemed really premature to me to vote on this. I think it's a good step in the right direction. I couldn't agree more with the previous comments. I failed to hear the name because I was out in the hallway. But there was way too many unanswered can be answered quickly so that when we are coming into Anderson Cove and we're mooring on the beach, we're not in violation of some crazy rule that says you can't park here but you can go 50 yards down and park there.
Right.
It seems so muddy. Secondly, money's not going to fix this behavior. And I know enforcement's been a central argument. It won't solve enforcement. For example, I'm one family overnight with my 4 kids, my wife. If I didn't have a permit and I got cited, but there were 40 boats tied up who all had a permit, which one of those parties is more at risk and citizens around in that community? That one family that's now being forced off the lake, or the 40 who are still engaging in the behavior that they will continue to engage in? And my third point is that peer pressure is really powerful. I appreciate the comments about going into Facebook and seeing what people were saying about their peer group. And I think this brings us to a point that's looming above your heads around continuous improvement. I didn't hear much more than that talk about using technology to police the lake. If you've got 500, 1,000 users on the lake, all with cell phones, you've got 500 to 1,000 law enforcement officers who could, tap into the power of, say, a 911 or an emergency app to report pictures or video of inappropriate behavior. And not just because it can be reported and taken care of after the fact, but the camera is pretty powerful, and it by itself can curb behavior when people realize they're being watched and that we're being good citizens watching out over this beautiful asset that we have, that many of us are going to have to make the choice not to use because the burden has become too high. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you'll say hi to your wife, one of my dear friends from high school that I have unfortunately not kept up with like I should have, and just, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion and second that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. I don't need one.
Commissioner, I know we're adjourned, but just a quick time to ask you about this. You typically recognize you go right.
I didn't until you said we were.
So
I think we are Facebook.
Probably,
Well, Jen.
I know Jen, you are, yeah. I know for him to be able to move forward his project from a Boy Scout Council perspective, he needs a signature from a beneficiary that we like the project and we want him to pursue it. So can somebody do that?
I think I can. Dave, can I sign this?
It's just an Eagle Scout test. And then this is,
Yeah.
This is, and this yes is